Hey, coffee experts. Those of you running independent coffee shops, you're always looking for ways that you can drop your costs. And we here at the Coffee Experts Club really understand that. And so we've started something called Indie Coffee Coalition. And what it's designed to do is to drop your costs on two of the things that you're probably experiencing the highest sales volume in your store. And that is energy drink and frat mix. Those two line items, we've created our own products and are offering you those products at a reduced cost so that you can cut out the Red Bull of America. You can cut out the main lines of energy drinks that you're doing and serve your own energy drink at a reduced cost on a line item that you're probably already making a lot of sales on anyway. The best way that you can grow sales is by dropping your costs and maintaining a current volume. So check us out at indiecoffee.co and we'll love to tell you more there.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Coffee Experts Club. Ben Clatterbuck, how you doing today, brother?
Brand, it is a fantastic Friday.
Fantastic Friday. Our poor boy Drew stuck on the bar today down at Coffee de los Mayas. We had some kids fall off and Drew's having to train new folks. And he's like, man, I was going to call in from the bar, but I'm training somebody new. And so anyway, we're missing Drew today, but I mean, life is hard when you're a barista on the island of San Pedro and Belize, So I think I feel bad for him in some ways, but I think they're probably more tough crosses to bear. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Anyway, I'm excited today. We had the high privilege a few weeks back to interview the guys over at Coffee Culture up in Corvallis. Paul and Andrew, who are just stellar dudes, have been doing this for a long time. Talked about some great stuff. If you missed that episode, we talked about going from a photo booth to a coffee shop. I mean, we talked about all kinds of crazy stuff. And we got into like crazy balances on how you're making coffee. Like Andrew nerded out on us with some of the roasting side of things. We saw some cool stuff last round and we thought, man, coffee experts need to hear from those guys again. I felt like we just tried to squeeze too much in to one episode. So with no further ado, I'd love to bring Paul Tostberg and Andrew back to the stage for Coffee Experts Club. So Paul, thank you guys. So good to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Hey, fellas.
Yeah. So we were talking about just before the show, just all the excitement happening in Corvallis this weekend with graduation of OSU, which is cool to be in a college town. I think obviously, Paul, I'm sure that you must have scoped out, you must have had some optics on that and thinking about where to go, where to be opening up coffee. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely.
Did college actually draw you to the town?
Well, it really did. The employment base, overall was, very important, but you get a lot with a college town.
Right.
It's not just, about getting customers coming in for coffee. It's just interesting kind of a environment to live in that sort of town.
Mm-hmm.
And Corvallis with, what are we, like 50,000?
Yeah, I think it's with students, it's about 60,000. Without students, it's, I think, maybe as low as 35,000.
Yeah,
So,
students, I think, we're probably around 25 plus thousand.
yeah.
Total. But anyway, yeah, that was a big plus for our decision to do it here.
Do you guys see a bunch of swing like seasonally as far as when the kids go back home from school, come back to school? Does that, because I know like Ben and I talk a lot about seasonal and even, we do scorecards for coffee shops where we're like tracking certain metrics, tracking certain numbers week over week, just to see how things are moving on a weekly meeting style. We have to adjust that a lot of times based upon, especially coming into spring and summer, right? Especially coming into winter with maybe hard goods and gifts and things. But do you guys feel like a lot of your season happens around the university and their schedule?
Oh,
Yeah.
it definitely, sales flatten out a bit, and, makes his life a little bit easier. He's not, doesn't have to roast as much coffee during the summer.
Yeah, during the school year, other than like the holiday season, which is just absolutely crazy. But during the school year, I'm roasting anywhere from, 800 pounds a week to 1,000 pounds a week. During the summer, it's more like, maybe 600 to 800 pounds. So it's a pretty big drop off, but there's a lot of students that also take summer classes.
Sure.
And we have a really loyal townie support system.
Yeah.
So
It's not just the students either, of
Yeah.
course. I mean, when our kids were in public schools, we'd show up the last day of classes in June, pile in the car, and we're going to Disneyland or something.
Right.
So, I mean, families are leaving. It's not
Right.
just the OSU students.
How's that affect you guys staff wise? Like, because I would imagine too, like one of the bonuses in my mind. So you come to a college town, obviously, we just talked about a huge swing in population, 35,000 population, 60,000, with just the student body or, staff, all those different pieces. But then obviously you have the benefit also of like your employee base, right? Like it's right in the right demographic for a lot of your baristas. Is that college age student? Do you have a problem when kids are going back home? Do kids stay with you? Like, how does that work? Do you have seasonal kids that are there for school year or not? Or
It's an unsolvable puzzle. I mean, my wife, Lisa, she's the ace. We've done this 30 years here. We've employed other people doing other things in the past, even before that. And we're lucky. We're lucky we have so many good applicants. We feel lucky if we hire a freshman or a sophomore. They're going to be with us for, 2, 3, 4 years.
Yep.
So for the most part, all of that is the patterns sort of repeat themselves, year in, year out. And we know what to expect. The details change a bit. Like this year, she says, I can't believe it. Only 2 people are leaving. And that's unheard of. But the ones that are graduating are electing to stay. Good problem, but a little different.
You got my wheels turning now of like employee retention and all that. Have you found that
PTSD? Was it wheels? Was it PTSD? Because man, you dealt with a lot of this for a lot of years. So
I'm curious if because you have so many kids there in town, like, do you find that like your ability to hire a really good employee goes up? I mean, like versus like us, for example, you're trying to like, can I find any kid out there? Anybody will do. You've never even touched a coffee bean before. Sure, you're hired. Or is it you're like, you guys can pull on really experienced people and really, really well qualified employees?
Well, it's a combination. We don't care about experience. We're hiring for personality.
Sure.
And we want to look at a work history that shows that they were able to stick with something.
right.
But we can teach them everything they need to know.
Sure.
So that's really not an issue. The fact that we get lots and lots of young, bright, motivated applicants, that does allow us to, pick the really good ones.
I think that's, especially coming out of, there's some places that we help coffee shops that don't have a university, right? And then the downside is the kids that graduate and stick around, you often wonder like, so are these the brightest ones or did the town just lose their brightest batch because they all left for college, and then the people that you retain, you don't have that same necessarily like higher caliber, high pusher. And not that college is the end all be all. I think there are plenty of smart people that don't do college. I just mean like that is a benefit that you do get a lot of super smart people at it. And I think obviously that was a big generalization. Don't want to anybody, but I'm just saying like, I do think it's nice that you guys get some really bright kids that are all like pushing the envelope, that all probably have some goals they're shooting for, and that can be kind of the pull that you're pulling from, and that there are a lot of them, right? Like my daughter lives in Corvallis. I know when my daughter was looking for a job, it's hard to find jobs because there's so many kids that age that are like hungry and need work and super bright. And so she was up against a lot of kids that, are meeting all those markers,
Yeah. No, I hear that.
And it's kind of a double-edged sword because then, because we're in a college town, we have that steady flow of potential applicants. But then, 4 years later, we've had some really great people who have stayed, working on the barista side, delivery side, what have you. And then they graduate and then they, they're off to start their career.
Right.
But we've been really lucky us as employees are really lucky that Paul and Lisa do a great job of hiring and training people who can easily like work into those gaps with the support that's necessary to keep things running smoothly for, people like me who are the like permanent lifetime employees.
For sure.
Yeah, it's unavoidable.
I was wondering, like, even just listening to you guys talk, and I know we're kind of in a rabbit trail right now, so I don't want to take us down here too long because we have plenty of more exciting things to talk about from this. But like, just thinking about people falling off like that. 'Cause Andrew, that's a great point. You know, you've got this kid super bright, super sharp, they're really picking up on their stuff. And then after 3 years, because if you got them when they're young, maybe you get 3 years out of them, right? And then they're like, gee, because I'm gonna go start my own thing in a different town, going back home, going someplace different. Paul, do you feel like it's because Ben and I spend a lot of time, Collab team spends a lot of time of helping people with SOPs, you know, designing their standard operating procedures. This is how this role goes, end over end, again and again, in case you lose somebody. But I bet you guys have probably gotten pretty well versed in, hey, with rotations happening this frequently, you better have a solid SOP because you need somebody to come in right behind them and pick right up like that guy never left, even if he was really good or she was really good at her job. Do you guys feel like you kind of ironed that out through the years?
Well, I would have to say if we hadn't, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. Yeah. Yeah, we have, you know, some pretty solid systems. One of the big game changers was, you know, maybe 10 years ago, we mandated that no barista would be on the bar, as in making drinks, for 6 months. So they were cashiering, they were bar backing, they were sweeping the floor, they were, you know, doing.
Wow.
But what we found was that, you know, it's sort of like that thing that you really want to do and you can't do it. You got to wait. Baby, when you get there, you're so ready to get on that machine. And plus you've been just in this environment for 6 months, absorbing everything.
Sure.
You know all the drinks, you know everything. You just are not able to make a cappuccino.
That's fascinating. Ben, what do you think of that? I mean, that's a unique perspective. Like, hey, we're not going to let you even touch me. I know one of my daughters works for In-N-Out, and In-N-Out's really like that a lot too. Hey, you can work the front end, you can work out in the main lobby, and then we'll start gently bringing you in to prepping the food, and then you'll graduate up to start doing fries, and then like we'll graduate you. But it's really high honor and multiple levels up, like level 5 or something like that, before we even let you on the grill flipping burgers. And you know, I think that in my mind, I'm like, how glorified is flipping burgers? But because they've presented it as something, no, you're building up to it. You're working up to it. Like you can't touch the grill until you're at this level. I do feel like it makes people really heighten the level of, no, this is a really big deal. I'm really excited for the opportunity. I haven't heard of many people doing what you're doing with that in coffee. Like hats off to you.
Super.
Yeah, it really did make a tremendous difference. And the barista that's now with that much time just in and around it, and certainly paying attention, they come in really strong and they ramp up really pretty quickly on the techniques just because they've been chomping at the bit, you know, wanting to do it. And so, yeah, it's worked out better than we thought it would, really.
Interesting. Do you see a lot of people drop off before they hit that 6-month mark, or is it like they hit it, they make the barista and like, you know, months something like, oh wait, I didn't want to do this actually. See you guys later.
Well, certainly that I'm sure that's happened, but they're probably doing us a favor.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
You have some
you're-
of them.
if you're not in it for, you know, you can't manage the first 6 months, you know, before you get on the bar there, then you probably should be doing something different.
It's a great way of looking at it.
I think too, it's cool to think about creating zone. I mean, like obviously that's something that we did at Roasters, something that we do at Coffee de las Mayas, if who's working where, like who's owning what, especially under high times. You know, we talked about graduation this weekend, and like there's sometimes when you get an influx of people and it's just like, man, hold on to the bars. You know what I mean? Because this thing it's going to go off the rails. We're going to get so much volume. And if people don't understand their zone, don't understand the flow, I think that can really, you know, we've all been in those situations where it gets crazy. And if people don't understand what they're supposed to be doing, you're actually going to make it messier and harder and give the customer a bad experience because you're not moving with enough speed. So I think it's smart.
I mean, it's really a ballet. You know, that's why, like, when I go into one of the shops because I need to, you know, talk to a manager about inventory or something, my first thought is, okay, where do I stand so that I'm not like
In the way.
people aren't walking around me, or I'm not standing in front of the milk fridge or something. But I mean, they've really done a good job of developing those systems so that everyone knows what their role is. It's just a very well, you know, oiled machine.
Yep.
Well, there's always room for improvement. In fact, I would say if you ever get to the point that you feel that's it, you can't make it any better, it's time to get out of the business because you would not be right. That would be wrong thinking. The improvements may be smaller,
Yeah.
but you can still always find something that you could do to make a bit of an improvement. And I think you're growing or you're shrinking. I don't think you get to a place where you just, everything's perfect and it stays in that at that level. You have to continue to strive.
Hey, experts, we've got something really awesome that we do here at Coffee Experts Club, and that's called the My First Drive-Through Coffee Masterclass. So if you're opening your next coffee shop, I think a lot of times you may think to yourself, I know what goes into opening a coffee shop. I've been doing this for years, but maybe you've been doing it for somebody else. And maybe this is your first option of starting a coffee shop on your own. Or maybe you don't know anything about coffee and you're just like, I'm looking for a good investment opportunity. Starting a coffee shop seems like a good place to put it, and you're going to enter into it. But what you don't know is all the things that you don't know, right? And so what we've done with this masterclass is taken behind the scenes, how you find your first location, what you need to be thinking about in finding a location. We give you a gift in the masterclass where it's a step-by-step process of how you're opening your coffee shop, the different checkpoints you need from coming up with your plans and talking with the city and then negotiating a lease. And then how do you build a team and what are the different pieces you need to be thinking about? It's a great masterclass, door to door, start to finish, completely free on opening up your next coffee drive-through. So check it out. It's at myfirstdrivethrough.coffee, and it's a great masterclass. You won't regret it. We'll see you on the inside there.
No, I love that. I think that's totally true. And I think it really tees up to what we're going to talk about next today with not only do you have like the whole coffee culture thing, which is a beautiful business. I mean, obviously 5 stores strong in a town, like you've really made a presence there, hometown hero. I think you've done some great stuff there, but you also have a pretty amazing roasting brand, with Holderness and what you guys are doing on that side. And we started before the show started, as we were keying up and talking about some things, you've got a whole little laboratory going on behind you, right? On to Paul's point of always getting better, right? So maybe could you guys talk to us about like even from the Holderness side and then how that flows down into the coffee culture side of always getting better when it comes to what you're doing behind you?
Our lab. Yeah. Every roastery it really is a laboratory. I mean, so yeah, Andrew can speak on a lot of this stuff. We've been doing it together, but I was going to just insert one little historical piece of this. When we first started the business, we were getting coffee from Mukilteo Coffee up in Mukilteo, Washington, and just some people that we knew. And we had espresso grinders, but we didn't have a bulk grinder for, drip coffee. So where we started was they would send us our whole bean coffee and some pre-ground coffee for the drip brewer.
Wow.
I'm a little embarrassed to admit that, but that's
great.
Everybody
starts somewhere. That's beautiful.
That was the starting point. Then we got a bun, your typical grocery store grinder, which, we still have a couple, hanging around and in service. And then we went to for a big twin batch brewer, they'll usually have a grinder that will grind by number of seconds, but it's one size fits all. So your house blend, your single origin, your decaf, everything's going through this thing and you're getting the same grind and the same dose, right? That's how they work.
Right.
Yeah. And so one size fits all. So really, we wanted to get away from that, and we have, which is every location is different. Even if we have the same grinder, we don't assume that it is going to be grinding the exact same particle, size distribution if it's on number 12 from one shop to the next shop. So we still are going to question what the correct grind setting is for whatever type of brewing that you're going to do or your customer's going to be doing at home. And we have to customize it.
Wow.
So the result is the same result, but the parameters may be tweaked a little bit from one location to the next location.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that's kind of where I come in because I
because you have like a rocket science degree, right? No, seriously, you've got a pretty significant degree for what you're doing here, right? We talked about that.
I actually
maybe TP.
I actually didn't graduate. I was offered.
You're in mine and Ben's club. That's great.
I was offered the head roasting position with about a year left in my food science degree, and I was like, you know what? I want to do this.
Right.
And that's the kind of job I'd be looking for anyway. But, I've never worked front of house in coffee before, but over, the last 6 years, obviously I've just, tried to digest every single bit of information. And then I also do have, that formal food science education behind me. So really what we've been doing lately with, all this stuff that you can see behind us is utilizing, what are the standard practices that we had? What are the, recommended practices that SCA has, Scott Rao, Blue Bottle, all the different sources that we have. How do we take all of that information and make it right for our coffee, for our brewers? So, we just spent like 4 weeks with this Curtis twin brewer behind me, going over different pulse settings, different bypass setting, different grind sizes, making sure that, from shop to shop, even though, 2 of our shops are using like Malkonig EK43s, there's a little bit of difference between them. So, if this machine's going in at one shop, what's the grind size for that shop? And then just utilizing as much of the kind of like lab practices that I used at OSU.
Yeah,
to
write
kind of-
down what you just did.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, right. How do you keep track? Yeah.
And
Which iteration are we on right now?
yeah, but then also you're isolating your variables. So you're typically, just changing one thing. But as we go along, we've become a little bit more efficient at that, and realizing like, okay, so this variable only affects this thing. So we can actually change multiple variables at the same time and it's still isolated. But it's, it's really getting that quantifiable information to just make the most delicious cup of, each specific coffee, and, different brew methods, different origin, all of the.
And we're measuring everything as much as humanly possible, including we use a refractometer for measuring dissolved solids.
Sure.
And so that we can, it's not the final say, but it's good to see what the numbers are. Are they within our acceptable, target range? And then it's just, you're just doing this. How did it taste? And so that's the ultimate decision, is based on how does it taste?
How do you
Taste is king.
How do you, as you guys are like going through the whole process and figuring out the best brew ratios and brew methods and grind settings, how do you communicate that to your customer who comes in and wants to buy, a pound of coffee, and they go, hey, how do I throw this in my coffee machine? What should I do? Do you put it on the side of their bag? Do you have like little educational
We do have it on the bag, which we actually are now changing.
Yeah, we're literally in the middle of
ratio
figuring this out.
that we,
That exactly.
once was just like, oh yeah, that's the ratio, no. I think we were saying 1:16, and
Well, on the bag,
On the
we're
bag.
saying we've said a couple different things, because we also do have brew guides online.
on our website.
Yeah, on our
Wow,
website.
great.
And so what we've settled on overall company wide most recently is actually 1:18 ratio. I think before we were doing, it was 1:16, 1:17.
Which is, not for everybody. That's pretty stout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But I think even something like that, that's just like you guys said, there's so much that goes into the back end of it. Like if you really wanted to get nerdy, you could talk to your customer, for 5 minutes on the perfect way to brew it, and their eyes would glaze over, and they probably put the bag of beans on one way.
Right.
But
That's
if
why
you-
I don't work front of house.
yeah, we're not
you just
doing
most
that.
people- Yeah, if you can just simply say, 1:18, 1 gram coffee, 18 grams of water, and you're golden. Like that's really easy for a customer to even remember. Just go 1:18. Oh yeah, 1:15, whatever it is.
And
So I think
that's
really
a small percentage of our regular customer base. Normally we don't get to that. It's just, how are you brewing at home?
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, then do you want us to grind okay, we're going to grind it for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there are, some that really do want to take it to the nth degree, and we're all for it. But we don't assume that anybody just wants to know what the ratio is. But except look at the bag, and it'll give you the ratio.
But I think the thing that is so impressive for me about coffee, like in just the short amount of time, every time we bring a roaster on, Ben, I'm always like, what are we talking about right now? Like I'm so out of my depth, right? Like I'm like that's just not a side of the business that I've ever had much involvement in. And just thinking about like represented here on the call, like I think for me, like I'm usually always in like big business coffee, like new locations, like working with the city, working with the contractor, working with teams or whatever. And Ben, I know you're like a lot of the day-to-day operations, like raising up managers, handling the HR, handling different pieces of like 150 employees. Like, how do you do all that side of things? And then I think of like Drew is like day to day on the ground, working with baristas, training baristas, making sure the workflow's right. And then we get to the roaster side of things, and it's all of this like super nerdy science and like ratios of grams to what. And I just think what an amazing thing this thing called coffee is. Cause I think if you're new to coffee and you come in and you're just like, I'm just going to throw up a stand, and I saw the way Dutch Bros does it, and I worked there as a barista for a few months, and I think I could nail this. And it's like, oh man, bro, there is so much more that goes into this art that you realize. And I think it's so interesting to me. How often do you guys do, as nerdy as you're getting right now with all that lab behind you and breakdowns by shops and like what machines are going where, do you guys re-challenge that at a certain amount of time? Like is every set of years, or is it like with every new set of machines, or how does that work for you guys?
No, it's been overdue. The sort of the instigation to this was we were going to replace the batch brewers with, right now we have 1 gallon brewers, and we get a lot of big orders, hey, we need, 7 gallons of coffee and blah, blah, blah. So these are 1.5 gallon Curtis batch brewers. They're, it's a twin brewer. So you got left side, right side. And, it's a little different, a little newer interface, a little more adjustable. Parameters can be, modified a bit more. So that was kind of the initial, like, oh, let's do this.
Yeah.
We need to do this. And then it just kind of went on from there.
Once you start peeling back the Band-Aid, you're like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. Well, one thing that was especially interesting is there's something when you get into a bigger batch. So your home brewer, you're doing, an 8-cupper, maybe a 10-cupper, something like that. So you're less than half a gallon, basically. You get up to a 1 gallon batch or a 1.5, for example, you utilize something called bypass. In other words, if you run all of the water through that amount of coffee, you got a problem.
Right.
So bypass, you can program it to, what were our percentages for the biggest batch? Was like 40%, something like that?
For the biggest batch, yeah, it's 39%.
Yeah.
Bypass.
And it just bypasses the brew basket directly into the, server.
Wow.
And
so 34%. 34%.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they don't.
That's great. I love it.
But the just, wrapping our heads around, why? And then, we've, read on it like, oh, okay, that makes so much sense. Then you get to bed depth. There's a lot going on with a simple drip coffee system. And it comes in with a really good understanding of, how this chemistry is working.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
as
and
far as
those little small changes, they really do matter. Half a centimeter difference in your bed depth can, really change the extraction, the concentration. So it's, it is really important. That's why we take those meticulous notes, is because you have to be able to track all that stuff just to kind of compare and contrast and continually make sure that you're serving the best coffee possible.
guys, I think it's so inspiring. It's so inspiring to listen to people that have such a deep passion for it. And obviously I know, Paul, you and I met over me getting a great cup of coffee and walking back out and meeting you in the back dumpster as you were sweeping it out, because you do it all. You've done it all. And I think it's so cool to watch, just like you said. I think that to watch you model what you said at the beginning of the show of, hey, if you're not growing, you're decreasing. Like if you're not always challenging yourself and wanting to be better, then you're going to lose speed. And I think just hats off to you guys at Coffee Culture. Hats off to Holderness, roasting and everything you're doing there with always challenging the best cup so that when people walk in, like end user is going to come in and they don't understand anything that you just said, but they do know this tastes amazing. This is different here. This makes me want to come back. The energy in your place of having different people with different spots on the bar of, no, you're not going to even start pulling shots until you've worked here and you understand how this works. I just think hats off to 30 years of making something better. And I just think we're just stoked to have you on the show. I mean, you guys are always such great guests. So thank you for spending time with us today and letting us have just a little peek into the secret behind the magic. Cause I think feels like the Wizard of Oz, Ben. It feels like we're like, who's the guy talking behind the veil? So
Wait, aren't we supposed to say, pay no attention to that, man?
Oh man.
But yeah, thank you for having us. We really enjoy coming on and talking to you guys.
Hey, Ben, you're in Tri-Cities, right?
Yes, sir.
How's it starting to get warm?
It was upper 90s last week. We dropped back down a little bit, but yeah, we're going to be pushing 100 here real quick.
Okay. That's warm.
Yep.
Tri-Cities does not mess around with heat. That's for sure.
That desert light.
And I remember there were times running roasters where we're like, should we shut the stands down? Because I mean, with machine heat and heat outside, those units can only push air so hard, and we're like, it's 90 degrees inside. Like, what are we doing to the kids? Like, is there a point where we need to let the kids go? Because Tri-Cities gets hot. There's no way around that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's going to be me in about a month.
Oh man. Where are you going in a month? What are you doing in a month?
Oh, I just meant with the weather
road,
here.
Yeah,
Again,
it's hot.
just standing next to my
Machines.
Joker all day. It gets warm.
Although this space it's a block construction, blocks,
Nice.
Yeah.
concrete block.
So it could be worse.
Yeah. And we can open up the roof access. There's a ladder going up to the roof, and we can open that big fan. We can kind of move some air out as needed first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Usually. So
Smart.
Yeah,
It's
We're okay.
manageable, but it's definitely noticeable.
That's awesome. Well, hey guys, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's always great having just experienced people that know what they're talking about and I know it elevates the listener. Me and Ben learn things. I think it's great. So thank you so much for joining us from Coffee Culture, and we'll look forward to having you guys on the show again downstream.
All right. We enjoyed it. Thanks to you too.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Ben, great having y'all as always. And thank you for listeners for tuning in today. We'll see you again next week here on Coffee Experts. See you guys.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.